Friendly Rivalry, Chapter 5. Izuku didn't know what changed when he got back the next day, and he wasn't sure how to react to it. At first, he'd thought that maybe they'd realized he was quirkless and useless, but they weren't treating him any differently on that front. Honestly, if anything, they were going slightly harder on him, leaving him exhausted when fighting practice was over. Tenki was again available, so he spent the last half of his day working on his code a bit more and learning the basics from a couple different languages. He hadn't been challenged mentally like that in a long time. His head was spinning with all the languages. Tenki clearly found it highly amusing that he ended up attempting to speak in Greek, only to speak in Norse, then trying to speak in Latin, spoke in the ancient Egyptian. Tenki, who was using a polyglot quirk that only did dead languages, wasn't having any issues. You try learning four at once, Izuku grouched, pouting as Tenki laughed again at him mixing up the languages. Having started his sentence in Greek and ended it in Norse. You asked to learn all four, Tenki reminded him. Try starting to write your notes in each language. Then it'd end up a horrific mismatch of four languages and be unintelligible to anyone but me. That'd be a good code, Tenki pointed out mildly. The quirk only translates verbal things. I'm using a completely different quirk to teach you the writing segments. Start trying to separate the languages, but keep your ability to mash them together unintelligibly. Start with that, and when you can switch between them easily, we'll start coding your mismatch. Alternatively, you could try dropping one or two of the languages. It'd be easier, although possibly more annoying in the future. I'm not dropping anything, Izuku said firmly. I'll work on it. See how many sentences you can make with the words you know. Then read them all aloud when you're done, Tenki agreed. Don't accidentally start writing homework assignments in your mismatch, Izuku blushed. I won't. He couldn't. Kachan would blow a fuse if he thought Izuku thought he was better than he was. Of course, Tenki said mildly, raising an eyebrow. Let's try again. Izuku nodded quickly. Izuku was sure his mom was noticing something. Probably that he was now muttering in a mismatch of languages and was generally happier. Kachan certainly noticed him sneaking away as quickly as he could, avoiding him whenever possible. He noticed changes in himself. He was flinching less at Kachan's explosions, better able to evade Kachan and his lackeys, and well, he thought about jumping off a roof less, to be honest. He had friends now, and friends that believed in him and were helping him to be a hero. His stutter was gone around the reformed villains, although it was still there at school. And even there, it was starting to go away. I'm proud of your progress, Tenki said one day, after Izuku had successfully held a long conversation about various things with him, switching languages in time with Tenki. Izuku beamed. With your code for your notebooks out of the way, Tenki continued, gesturing to where Mastermind, Dombo, was sitting. Dombo has offered to teach you strategy. You do well to let him teach you. Izuku nodded quickly. It'd be my honor. The reformed villain's quirk was hyperintelligence, and he was rumored to have gone up against Nezu repeatedly during his career. Supposedly, he had lost a bet against Nezu, and that's why he retired and reformed. Don't tell it to me, Tenki chided gently. Tell him. Izuku blushed, but scrambled up, nearly tripping over his own feet on his way to the sofa. Tenki tell you my offer? Dombo asked, raising an amused eyebrow. Izuku nodded very quickly, then bowed at the waist. I'd be honored to learn from you. Dombo reached out and grabbed a set of papers. Take these, complete them on your own time. I want to see where you are. Do your best to complete each scenarios with as few casualties as possible. Izuku nodded, somewhat distractedly, looking through the papers. Each one had a very difficult strategy puzzle on them. Each detailed with his supplies and men were plus their skill level and skills of the enemy. Some were missing information on the enemy, some had a map, others didn't, and instead had a description of the surrounding area. It looked pretty fun if Izuku was being honest. But now, Dombo said, interrupting his train of thought, play shoji with me. Izuku quickly ran back to put the papers on top of his notebooks, where they were waiting to put back in his backpack. He hurried back, sitting down across from Dombo. He knew the basics of how to play, although he was sure he was going to lose. This was going to be a learning experience, though, and he'd try harder next time. He did lose, although Dombo went through each move they'd both made, pointing out flaws and good moves, then explaining what his strategy had been, followed by the maneuvers he used. My grandfather taught me all of these, Dombo explained, finishing up. And now I will teach these to you. He was the smartest man I knew, although had a powerful shadow-based quirk, not an intelligence-based one. Was your quirk a mutation? Izuku asked curiously. No, it was actually from my mother. Her and grandfather would play shogi regularly. Apparently, she never won a single round with him. I neither did either, actually. Wow, he sounds really smart, especially for not having an intelligence-based quirk, Izuku marveled quietly. Sometimes I wonder if he would have beaten Nezu at his own game, Donbo mused quietly. Unfortunately, it was never tested. Whoa, Izuku muttered, resetting up the board. I think we have time for one more before I have to go. Oh, all right, Donbo said, sighing somewhat exaggeratedly. One more game. Izuku cheered quietly, making his first move. Izuku knew they had a shogi board at home. He'd seen it a couple of times, and had played his mom a few times too. He just had to practice some of what he learned on her, 'cause she probably wouldn't promptly counter anything he tried. Hey Mom, Izuku said as he got home. Can we play shogi? Me and one of my friends were playing it today, and he taught me some things and I want to try them out. Ah, well, alright. You can go get it out if you want. I can't promise I'll be a good opponent, though. His mom patted his head. And we can't play for too long. I do have to get dinner ready. Izuku nodded dutifully and hurried to get the board he knew was stashed in the game closet. He briefly wondered what dinner was, and if he could work on his homework from Dombo. After shogi, maybe. Izuku grabbed the board, running back into the main room to find his mom. I got it! His mom smiled, patting the center of the table. I hope you remember how to set it up. I'm afraid I only remember what the pieces can do. Izuku quickly set up the board. Yep, I remember how to set it up.